Yo, what's going on, guys? Jay here, and today we are reviewing Quaranta by Danny Brown. Danny Brown is a Detroit MC who has been in the game for years, definitely a certified veteran. Dropped a legendary album in 2016 in Atrocity Exhibition and is one of the most revered names in the game right now. He already dropped a great borderline amazing album this year in Scaring the Hose, a collab record with JPEG Mafia. But Quaranta is his first solo album since 2019. 2023 has been a big return to the spotlight. Not although Danny's not super big, but a big return into the public eye for Danny musically. And Quaranta also serves as a follow-up to his 2013 album XXX, which of course in Roman numerals is 30. Quaranta is 40 in Italian. This is Danny Brown and where he's at 40. The very first bars this man lays down on this album are, "This rap shit done saved my life and fucked it up at the same time. The pain in my heart I can't hide. Lots of trauma inside, you could see it in my eyes." These bars of course show that this is going to be a deeply personal and revealing album for Danny, which he is known a lot for his experimental work in the hip-hop genre. In Quaranta we get to see him get very personal and very vulnerable, as well as bring in some social commentary, which is a very nice switch up from him, and I love this more introspective Danny. It's one of my favorite things about this record. And of course when he says "you could see it in my eyes," that is in reference to the album cover where it's just a headshot of Danny. He looks deep in thought. He says "you could see the trauma in my eyes." Again, go look at the headshot on the album cover. So this self-titled intro track has a kind of trippy boom bap beat that immediately locks you into Danny's reflective mind state. Here we see Danny rapping about a woman he was once with and that he loved, and how he now misses her and is regretful that they're no longer together, and rapping things like saying he lost everything in pursuit of his dreams. This woman that Danny misses is referenced several times throughout the album and is clearly something that is on Danny's mind a lot these days and is a recurring mantra in this 34-minute long album. And throughout the album I constantly find myself wishing to know more about this woman. She is never named, and Danny doesn't mention why he actually lost her too much other than losing her while chasing his dreams in the rap game. Now there are several reasons that could be. I wish he specified it, but you could infer that maybe his schedule got super busy and he just didn't have time for a relationship between doing shows, trying to make music, all this stuff. Also important to consider the heavy drug addiction Danny Brown went through in a lot of his career. He references it a bunch here, and that could be another reason why he is so regretful and remorseful about this one, why he misses her so much. But again, it's one of those things where it would be nice to know more. It would provide a better context and a broader, more detailed picture. The following track, Tantor, is a return to the drugged out Danny Brown we come to know, with his super harsh delivery and the off-putting experimental instrumental on the track produced by none other than The Alchemist. Danny is of course super animated on this track with a very random and out-of-pocket sense of humor, again like he's been known for, dropping bars like "I got a Mexican homie named Chinese Mike," or "got a problem with voting you an absentee." Danny's strong one-liners are present throughout the album as well. He still has his iconic bars. And I thought the outro to this song was also very funny, of Michael Scott from The Office screaming "no," and the way I edited it sounds like he's screaming it into a void and just evaporating as he's yelling. Personally, I never found The Office very entertaining after that first watch, so it kind of annoys me, but this is the first time in years I found Michael Scott to be funny, so thank you to Danny Brown and The Alchemist for that. And Tantor is an amazing song, but it is a drawback for the album, in my opinion, in the sense where the rest of this album, we are getting this very refined, very introspective Danny Brown. He's rapping over a lot of boom bap beats, and maybe more tame shit in comparison to what he's known for in terms of what he did on XXX and on Atrocity Exhibition. And it's not that I don't miss that Danny, and again I love Tantor, it is an amazing song, but tracks like this and tracks like Dark Sword Angel do feel kind of derivative to the narrative that Danny's spinning about on this album, where again very reflective, very introspective, very much Danny seems to feel a lot of regret and maybe even some shame about his past. And then on these two tracks we do see him popping out and kind of just being like, "Hey guys, I can still do it like that." And we know he could do it like that. He was in that kind of rapping bag on Scaring the Hose, super experimental production, in-your-face abrasive delivery, outlandish bars. We know he could still do it. And it's one of those things where it does make the album feel a little bit less focused. I will say this is a minor nitpick. This isn't the end of the world. This is a top 3 album of the year in my opinion. Not to give away the review, but it is. So when I'm saying that, this or that about the album, it is minor nitpicks, because again, Tantor and Dark Sword Angel are honestly some of the best tracks on the album. I just don't think they fit the concept here. And yeah, going back to Dark Sword Angel, we do get this very abrasive, in-your-face Danny Brown performance over this warped instrumental from Quelle Chris and Chris Keys. And yeah, we got the vintage Danny Brown sense of humor, dropping bars like try to put my finger in her like a rotary phone. And of course, Danny Brown's rapping is on point. It is on point throughout the whole fucking record. He, again, like I said, one of the best rappers in the game currently. And talking about a track like Ain't My Concern, we get an eerie psychedelic instrumental, again from Quelle Chris and Chris Keys. And on this track, Danny is commenting on the state of the rap game and talking about the vicious cycle and desperate things that people will do in pursuit of getting to the top of the rap game, and rapping about how he himself has hit some of these pitfalls and kind of warning people to try and avoid this culture or this cycle of whether it be engaging in stupid beefs online, embarrassing and humiliating yourself online for attention, or even something as simple as falling into a pattern of drug addiction, trying to fit in with the other people in your lane and in your game. And yeah, Danny's rapping about those things, how he went bankrupt trying to make it in the rap game, the addiction he fell into, and how he overwhelmingly felt like he needed to change his life. Jen's Terrific Vacation is a major highlight from a conceptual standpoint on this album, where on this track we see Danny rapping about the gentrification he sees in his city of Detroit. Of course, the title Jen's Terrific Vacation is a play on gentrification, the word. And just to define, I'll put a little definition up for you guys right now. But gentrification is a process whereby the character of a poor urban city is changed by wealthier people moving in, improving the housing and attracting business, and typically displacing the poor people who already lived in this community as they are unable to keep up with the rent, typically displacing current inhabitants throughout the process. The dictionary definition I just pulled out may make it sound like gentrification is a good thing in terms of the economic development and prosperity in poor areas, but the issue, aside from gentrification being mainly a racial issue that affects people of color and other marginalized groups in America disproportionately, because it is typically white people moving in and gentrifying these poor cities and forcing people out of their homes. The obvious issue is when you have housing and economic development that is built around attracting wealthy people to an area that is historically predominantly and systemically poor, is that it forces out the people who currently live there, the current inhabitants. Because of course, as all this economic growth is happening, the rent in these places begins to rise. The landowners are able to raise their prices to keep up with the wealthier people who are moving in. But this is, again, affects the people who are living there in a very negative way, because their rent is rising to match the people who are moving in. So the people who live there already are kind of fucked because they can't afford to pay their rent. They are already struggling to get by in these poor and underdeveloped cities where they already may be taken advantage of in their economic housing situations. Now they are being forced out because the rent prices are skyrocketing to match a demographic of people who do not even live there yet. And again, Danny comments on this, talks about it on the chorus of Jen's Terrific Vacation rapping. Tell me what you do when the block gets slow and the money get low, but the rent rise up. White folk popping out the blue. They tore that down and made that to a Whole Foods. Real quick sidebar, there's a fucking great South Park episode that I just remembered about gentrification. We also see Danny dropping bars, talking about seeing places that used to be crack houses turned into Starbucks. And at the end of this track, Danny is begging the audience, his listeners, to answer the question, where would you go and what would you do if this were to happen to you? Now that this in question, of course, being forced out of your home due to a sharp increase in the cost of living because of new people coming in. And obviously it's an open-ended question because the answer is not quite there. Gentrification is a major problem in the United States that places are actively trying to combat, and ones that as a society we should be working towards answering to help the people who are disproportionately affected by gentrification, because it does not seem like it's stopping. Moving on to the track YPB. This is another song about Danny Brown's time in Detroit, about his life in Detroit, except a different perspective of it. As the title suggests, YPB stands for Young, Poor, and Black, as you find out on the chorus, or Young, Black, and Poor, as it is stylized, YBP. And this is more about Danny's youth. And it's an oddly upbeat and rhythmic track where Danny is detailing some of the horrors he witnessed and experienced growing up young, black, and poor in Detroit. He touches on the addiction and violence in his family growing up, as well as losing close friends at a young age, and rapping about how this is not just a Danny Brown specific experience, but a lot of this is shared experiences of people who are growing up young, black, and poor in Detroit. We also get a track from Bruiser Wolf here, who brings a very fun and zany performance to this track that is very grim in subject matter, rapping about similar stuff, but he has a very E40 reminiscent type of flow and cadence, when his feature just serves as another quirky and almost off-putting element to this more personal type of track. Down With It is another personally revealing moment for Danny, where he is bearing his soul on the track about his past regrets. He raps about wishing he listened to his friends and slowed down like they wanted him to, and again is expressing great remorse over this woman in his life who he loved and lost in pursuit of his dreams. He also touches up on how the void in him filled up with depression and eventually deep addiction, where again, if you are someone who is watching this and has never listened to Danny Brown, if you are someone who Quaranta is the first Danny Brown album you're hearing, or Scaring the Hose is the first Danny Brown album you're hearing, and you want to become a fan, Atrocity Exhibition is a must listen. And believe me, it is not a super digestible listen. It is not accessible. It is very out there, very experimental, but it is very, very important. Danny Brown's career narrative, where again, that album touches a lot. Not just touches, it shows, it illustrates Danny Brown's addiction better than any rap album probably ever has displayed addiction before. And the outro bass jam is a serious vibe change, both stylistically and in terms of the subject matter Danny is displaying. We see him in a rare form reminiscing on the good times of his childhood, good times with his parents as a kid. And this is a very more calm and again reminiscent Danny. He's also hear him asking his fans to play his song one more time in what is a very upbeat ending to an album that was sonically eerie and dark and narratively brutally honest. So Bass Jam is a great foil to the rest of the album, honestly, and I think brings it to a close and again a very a very pleasing, a very pleasant way, because again, it's always to see Danny in this reflective, introspective state does mean that he's moved on from some of the demons he's dealt with in his life, and to see him tackling them on here, it's great for him, and it makes me happy to see. And him ending Quaranta on such an upbeat note, again, awesome, absolutely awesome, even if it's not the most deep or typical Danny Brown track in the world. The prior track, Hamani, is possibly the emotional crux of this album, where we see Danny rapping about having to work against the clock in the rap game. Where again, Quaranta, Danny is here, and he's been in the game probably close to 15 years at this point, if not longer, but he is 40 at this point. But he talks about how rap is a young man's game and he kind of missed his mark. He raps about how he thinks his time is past to have a chart-topping hit or to win the Grammys, which again goes back to on the outro bass jam where he's asking his fans to give one more listen. That's because at this point it is clear to us that that's who he's doing it for. He is making music for himself and for his fans. He acknowledges the fact that his chance to be extremely impactful in a mainstream and cultural way may just be gone. He may have just aged out and missed his chance, as he is rapping about on the song, which is sad to think about. We also see Danny Brown here commenting on rap as a job, which is very cool to see here. You don't see a lot of rappers, especially more established artists, commenting on this, but he talks about how stressful it was at a period of time for him to be making music because he was relying on it for his source of income. Again, it is his job. Any rapper, that is their job. And yeah, all these rappers and artists these days are always talking about how they're rich as hell. They got their chains, their money. They want you to know they're rich as fuck. That's like most of their content matter. And Danny, was letting you know he didn't have it like that. He, of course, went bankrupt, making Atrocity Exhibitions, paying out so much money to producers and in sample clearances. Probably one of the regrets he raps about here. But he talks about how the stress, it was a lot for him. He hints that it may be part of the reason why he stepped back from music for so long. Well, not necessarily for so long, but why he isn't super present in music, and that there may have been a point where he lost his love for rap. But we also do get some solace here where Danny is rapping about still feeling blessed to be where he's at despite all the hardships that he's had to conquer. He also warns listeners not to waste their time on this track, rapping about how it is one of the biggest luxuries or most important things you could have in the world. And he conducts this through his raps with bars like, put my life in a verse when I'm dead in a hearse. You don't read between the lines, see that pain and that hurt. All the trauma I endured, doing drugs and drinking was the cure. Had to sin to make ends, but my soul is still pure. Where on this stanza, Danny is essentially rapping about how he used drugs and drinking as a serious coping mechanism in his life to try and get through the tough times, from the trauma he endured as a kid that he tackles on here to growing up and trying to become a rapper and all the stresses that came with that, the trauma he endured, losing his money and his success, the trauma he endured going through serious drug addiction. He is just trying to say that at the end of the day, he was doing what he had to do to take care of himself. Maybe not necessarily trying to justify his addiction, but to cleanse his conscience or cleanse his soul. And he may not be a bad person. His soul is pure, like he says, but he was in a bad place, going through some bad times. But again, Quaranta, this album, Danny is reflecting upon it and trying to grow from it, which is the best thing you could do in your life. But overall, on Quaranta, I mean, first of all, again, Danny Brown is an incredible rapper, so it should be no surprise when some of the best rhyme schemes, wordplay, vocabulary, just overall lyricism of the entire year is found on this project. There's not many rappers or even albums that came out this year that I think hold a candle to Quaranta in terms of the quality and songwriting. Also, a very concise project with 11 tracks. I didn't talk about Celibate featuring Mike or Shakedown, but both of those tracks are also amazing in my opinion. There's not a miss here. I love the production here. The soundscapes are really interesting. I like hearing Danny over more relaxed boom bap type of instrumentals when he's going to get in his lyrical bag. I think he thrives there, to be honest. And Quelle, Chris Keys, and as well as Casa overall, all delivered great productions on multiple occasions throughout this album. The Alchemist was here as well. Love the soundscape and atmosphere. And I really like it. The best part of this album was seeing Danny get reflective and introspective. I hope every artist and every rapper drops an album like this at a point in their career. I mean, we've seen it with Kendrick and Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, or Denzel Curry and Melt My Eyes, See Your Future last year, to a degree where we are getting these deep, revealing, vulnerable albums from popular artists where they are rapping about the trauma they endured and how they attempt to overcome it. And I think that is some of the best stuff going on in the lyrical, conscious side of hip-hop right now, and every artist that is doing that is making some of the best music out. So shout out to Danny on that. Like I said, this is one of the best albums of the years, and the only real complaints I have with this album are, again, like I said, tracks like Tantor and Dark Sword Angel, as amazing as they are kind of derivative and take away from the conceptual and narrative build of the album, but also the fact that the narrative build isn't as deep as I'd like it to be. Going back to what I said about Danny with this woman, I wish there was more details about that, maybe more anecdotes from his childhood, but because at points it does feel like he is just commenting on certain things or saying certain things that happen and without going super deep into it. And on the social commentary side, I would like more. On the personal side, I would like more as well, although I can't hold it against him if he doesn't want to get too deep about the woman that he once loved and had a relationship with. I understand that he is a rapper, a popular rapper. If he doesn't want to air out everything on the track, I don't think anyone's going to fault him. That's just me personally, being invested in his story and in the narrative of this album and wishing I knew more. But for what he did give us, I'm feeling an 8.9 on Quaranta. Like I said, one of the best albums. I do wish there was a bit more detail here, a bit more to sift through. I feel like some of the commentary is surface level at points. That's why it fails to live up to its full potential. That's why it's sitting below the 9 mark. But 8.9, this might be my album of the year. It's hard for me to decide because my opinion, Utopia was my album of the year for a minute. My opinions are a little bit mixed on it. So it might be Quaranta. We'll see at the end of the year. And if he did what I was saying, it probably would be album of the year for sure. But regardless, Quaranta is one of the best albums of the year. Do yourself a favor and check this out. If you are into conscious rap, if you are into rappers getting deep and talking to you about their personal lives, this is the album for you. Would heavily recommend this. And I appreciate all you guys tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, all that stuff. It helps a lot. A lot of work goes into these videos. Anything you guys do to get me some exposure means the world. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.